Welcome to the Beyond Atheism podcast, with me, Nathan Alexander, and my co-host, Todd Tavares. This podcast moves beyond questions of God's existence to ask, what's next in a godless world? If you're enjoying the show so far, remember to like and subscribe, rate and review, and consider supporting us on Patreon. Beyond Atheism is produced and distributed by Atheists United Studios.
Here at Beyond Atheism, we're stubbornly future-oriented. The focus is mostly on where we are or should be going. But today, we're going to take a look back on the year that was in order to reflect on how it informs and complicates the road ahead. Thanks to a year of fantastic guests, we've learned more about who atheists are, what the world they are making is like, and where the next challenges lie. And much like filling in a puzzle, a bigger picture shows greater connections and gives a clearer view, but also reveals missing pieces and gaps. Join us today as Nathan and I take stock of 2022 and begin the discussion of what lies beyond atheism in 2023. Nathan, congratulations on another successful year and welcome to Beyond Atheism.
Well, congratulations to you for also another successful year.
We did it. We did it together. That's the important thing.
It's crazy. It's our second full year.
Yeah. And this is year 3. Or will be.
It will be, yeah.
Crazy. Hopefully.
Yes.
So, Nathan, when you look back, do you have a big takeaway? What have you learned? What has it filled in for you? Where has your sort of thinking about atheism, your understanding of it, what has filled in the most? What has grown? Are there any central questions that have been definitively answered for you?
Not yet, but I think I think there's I guess one could be like sort of the variety and sort of extent of new kind of secular activism that people are, taking, are leading different organizations and stuff and doing it in new ways. And there's not sort of a one size fits all approach. People are being very creative and innovative in their activism, and it ranges from politics to sort of more community oriented kind of things. And so I think it's been cool to learn about all of that. And I think it does seem like the atheist and secular community is evolving and progressing and so on. And that's sort of, it's exciting to learn about it from the people who are kind of at the forefront.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, that's still one of the most, and I think this is something we saw both years. We've seen it every year where it's growing a network, but mostly it's self-selecting, right? It's people who are choosing to do it. And yet they're building things that it's not just that it's a structure. It's not just plugging into a network. It's that they're building lasting institutions, things that you can grow from it, right? And I think we've seen this, especially politically, which I think we've seen from top to bottom big changes this year, right? From very, very much grassroots, local groups, as atheists, taking the initiative and being like, hey, we want secular candidates. We want candidates who are going to stick up for our values. We're going to find out who these people are, and we're going to endorse the ones who match our needs, right? From that low level, all the way up, I think both vertically and horizontally, we've seen that go up all the way through the sort of secular coalition, which takes things on nationally. And we've seen it sort of horizontally, where groups are speaking to one another at the local levels, figuring out ways to do that. And that's been fantastic. I think Oasis in Texas was one that really started looking at local politics.
Yeah. And I think one of the things we started at the very first episode and sort of the genesis of the podcast was this article that Todd and I wrote in like late 2020, early 2021 about,
we were too ahead of our time,
about like, the sort of emerging block of secular voters who could have an important impact in politics. And I think it's, it's been good to see that other people are catching on to that. I mean,
Yeah.
not to say that like other people hadn't realized that, but I think it's becoming more and more apparent now. And you're starting to see kind of mainstream recognition of this. And yeah, I think it's true that at the sort of national level in the U.S. and local or state and local level, secular groups are like, you know, explicitly getting involved. Like we talked with Rachel Walter from the secular Democrats of Nebraska. I mean, like, and so these groups are, yeah, it's not just sort of an abstract voting block. It's, you know, it's sort of institutions are being created that are, you know, putting pressure on politicians and working with politicians and so on. So I think that's another cool change to kind of see happening again, like in real time. And, you know, something we were talking about 2 years ago is becoming ever more apparent.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like, this is the, like, it's in mainstream reporting now. Because, and Rachel, to her credit, she was bold enough to make a prediction, Nathan. And she said, like, no, Democrats are going to win. They're going to hold out. They're more popular than we think. They're going to overcome. And she was like half right, I think, in the midterm elections. They won by not losing very bad. That was pretty
Right.
terrific.
Yes. Yeah.
But get half, we'll give her a half mark for that one.
Yeah. I'm not
But
sure
like, to your
if anyone
point, like,
was, yeah.
we're seeing both of those things in the analysis. They're saying things like it's non-religious people who are motivated by things like abortion, right? Non-religious people turned off by Republicans. Non-religious voters are now, as a group, bigger than Catholics. Right? Catholics, we know, are 50-50 voters. So yeah, on the one hand, there's this demographic change and this voting consistency, right? We know that non-religious voters are again voting as solidly Democratic as evangelicals vote Republican. We've seen it again and again. It's come up in every election. It seems pretty persistent across time and place. And it's being now non-religious voters, atheists, small a atheists, are being treated as a potential block, someone who needs to be I don't know, not curried. What's the word I'm trying to say? Courted, perhaps?
Courted, maybe. Yeah.
Perhaps by a
Yeah. Or
party.
just like, yeah, their
Yeah.
interests are need to be taken into account, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And when there are as many, when you're as big as Catholics in America, you can't overlook that anymore. And Rachel, like, gave us that peek behind the curtain, and this was great to hear. Even though we know it's not, you know, it's not that there's an atheist power broker who's choosing, you know, who's going to run in this race and who the party will support there. But she talked about them building the platform. What is it that they're going to do? And part of it is a negotiation, but they're in on the negotiation. They are a
Yeah, that's true.
caucus. They're a group within the party. They're part of the decision-making process. And right now, we're talking about one local group. We don't know what's happening at the other local groups. Although I think there are some. We know that there are other secular caucuses like that. But it's growing, right? And it's having an impact, right? They're changing their platform. They're changing what people who run on their platform do and say and enact once they get into power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And I think like having these kind of institutional vehicles sort of for that, it's not just a matter of like a third of the population is non-religious. It's like we actually have sort of organized groups who can come out to the voting booth or whatever. Yeah, so there's sort of more tangible ways of exercising power. I think another thing sort of related to this issue that we've kind of seen is, you know, we've identified that atheists share a lot in common, like politically, but there's also resistance to this among some atheists. I think more generally, for some atheists, there's resistance to the idea that you can really say anything. You know, you can identify any trends in common with other atheists, and I think, well, we talked with Joseph Blankholm earlier this year, and he talked about this idea of the secular paradox of this sort of ambivalence or whatever to appearing like atheism is too much like a religion, or that a fear, I guess, of almost like belonging to a group or like something like
Yeah.
like anything that kind of takes away from like you just being a pure abstract individual, like that you would have something in common with other people who share your beliefs.
Yeah, I mean, let's cut to the core of what he was talking about. When we get to the quick, it's basically like atheist groups are antisocial social groups, right? It's a
Yeah.
group for misanthropes almost. We're not
Yeah.
misanthropes, but that idea, like it's people who don't want to be around other people, don't want to conform,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
tough. It's like herding cats.
Yeah. I think there's definitely that resistance to any kind of organization. I mean, that's what led them probably to be atheists to begin with, is just a desire for like independence and so on. But I think,
Yeah, and the fear of having to
yeah,
conform to a
yeah,
system.
exactly, yeah. And I think like that's all fine, but then nonetheless, you can still notice commonalities shared among atheists, and like those commonalities are not controversial to point out. That many are lean sort of leftward politically, share different political views. It's not to say like all atheists think exactly the same, but it shouldn't be controversial to sort of notice those
Well, what
similarities.
are those traits? What are the things that people definitely share that have been measured?
I'm sure like the common one across everyone would probably be a resistance or like a desire to see just separation of church and state maintained, a resistance to like religious efforts to enforce rules over people, like what people can do, things like abortion, same-sex rights, and so on.
Yeah, and it's surprising like how big that one. To me, that's one that it's always shocked me like how big like pro LGBTQ the like how much support that comes from atheists. That's a
Yeah,
huge it's a huge
yeah.
blow.
Even something like like legalization of marijuana, I think is pretty. When you look at the support or opposition among religious groups, I mean, like I don't know what it is for atheists and agnostics, but I think it's probably 80 or 90% in favor of legalizing it. So I'm not. I mean, I'm just sort of doing that off the top of my head, but I think that's probably about right.
Yeah, it's
Um,
tough because like one like the numbers change frequently whenever they
yeah,
come
that's
out,
true.
and
Yeah,
and um
yeah,
it's tough to know. It's tough to remember which the last one was.
yeah, yeah. That's right. Yeah. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it's
So
like it's other very normal. Well, I always want to project my materialist view of the world onto this, but like we know there's other things like the environment is big, social
right.
tolerance is big,
Yes. Yes.
education is generally big, and there are things that like it really really matches with what you would kind of expect from an atheist, right? People who don't believe in an afterlife, they don't believe in a god. Of course, there are people who think it's okay to have gay marriage and we should take care of the earth because it's where we're going to be forever, and things like that.
And
Not very
yeah,
surprising.
I think like on that note, like sort of more social supports and things like that, I imagine is again supported by atheists and other secular people, like
Yeah,
things
I
like
mean, this
greater
is
access to healthcare and so on.
and this is something like I've been trying to like check myself on it because it's very often where like throughout the past year on the show, atheism and humanism just at a certain point get conflated. They just become one thing, and it's like I know they're not the same thing, and I know you don't have to be you don't have to be an atheist to be a humanist. You don't have to be a humanist to be an atheist. But I mean, that Venn diagram overlaps so much,
I
right?
think, yeah, I think depending on your definition of humanist, like some would say you do need to be an atheist to be a humanist, or at least you need to be kind of like non-theistic in some way. But yeah, I think I sort of, the way I see it is that atheism is kind of a subset of, or like is one aspect of humanism, I guess.
Mm,
Um, Humanism being more all encompassing, or like touching on other ethical areas.
yeah.
Um, Yeah.
But just to like, I mean, here's the thing. We know it's a good point, Nathan, and that might be where the overlap is. Because when we talk about, small a atheists, nuns, the non-religious, we're talking about people who religion is not a part of their life. They reject the existence of God and gods. They do not attend any religious service. They're not part of a religious community. They don't have the belief. They don't they don't act in that way. They don't belong to those communities. That's really one thing on its own. But what that's replaced with is what we see, and it's what we've seen all year. We've seen these kind of like people expressing new worldviews, and they very, very naturally overlap. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I think another thing that we've noticed a little bit is, well, we talked with Jamie Woodhouse a few months ago. He was talking about this idea of sentientism, like this idea we should care about all sentient beings, and sort of like veganism and so on. I think that's kind of another thing we've seen. I think like a couple of times we've asked about in the kind of true atheist section, we've asked kind of true atheists eat meat, and mostly, I mean, I do think like this is another thing that there seems like a disproportionate amount of vegetarians and vegans among atheists and non-religious ranks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
might just
So,
be the people we talk to. It's a very
oh, that
weird,
could be
very
true.
informal poll, but it keeps happening. Yeah. We
Yeah,
need to know
that's true.
more. This is one we need to learn more because,
Yeah,
yes, it does. The more it comes up, the more
yeah,
people say, you know, I need to
yeah.
eat less meat. I need to stop eating any meat.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was funny. I mean, like a few weeks ago, we talked with Tom Clark about, well, on a totally different thing, but we did ask him that question. I think he said he does eat meat, but he feels bad about it. So, so I think
Yeah.
that's something in the atheist worldview. I think like that's something that's apparently that's also in humanism now too. That's moving away, even though humanism in the name, human is in the name. It's I think there's sort of a move that it's like we also care about other creatures on the earth too. It's not just humans.
It's not humans at the top or humans at the
Right.
center.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I think another thing we've seen again, sort of in the building of institutions that, or building of communities that, like people who are leaving religion, there's a lot of supports available for them, or like we talk with Gail Jordan from recovering from religion, and I mean I think they do really good work in providing community and support for people who are leaving religion.
Yeah, I know. And there's so many, and we've got to talk to more of them because these resources that are out there are great for atheists at all levels. And it's great to like know they exist. It's great to know that you can use them when you need them. And certainly something like recovery from religion is just so necessary for people, and that you can contribute to it. And that's really super important. And this is something, Nathan, that I think we've been learning about the sort of like flip side of the secular paradox is that there are these institutions that are being built and are lasting. All right. Because part of the secular paradox is like, you know what, like it's really high turnover. These things don't last. People create them and then recreate them and recreate them, and people pass through. And like at a certain point, I kind of think that that's good, right? Like we should have groups that do that, right? Where it's part of it is that you're able to find yourself, right? Like you're looking for engagement, you're looking to socialize, um, and you're discovering what it is that you want to do and what you need, right? So when we make these groups, they're usually about socializing. They're usually, and this is, I mean, this is what was discussed in the book. They're trying all sorts of new things. It's great that we get to try these things. This is like when you step out of religion and you're faced with this, like, just like endless amount of freedom. It's bizarre, right? To like kill God is so liberating. And then you got to figure out what the hell you want to do. I think it's great that people are able to go through this, not in a sense that of without consequence, but without getting trapped, right? You're not getting stuck. You're not going from one sinking ship to another sinking ship. You're able to go and move freely and find your people and find where you're comfortable. And it's great that people get to learn to organize. It's great that people get to meet these other people. It's great to have that sense of building, right? And even if it fails, you can rebuild. I think that's fantastic. And we've seen from other people that, like, and even this is in recovering from religion. I think we talked a lot about this. It's like, yeah, it's really good that people come and it's really good that people leave because that means they feel better. And that's if that's what you're doing, oh my God. Oh, or I should say, oh my goodness. What a gift. That's really great. So I think that one of the things that I've learned is to just like embrace that part of the secular paradox. I know a lot of organizers who have gone through this where you start off with a group, you get together with friends, you drink, you dunk on religion. It's funny. You watch some sports, maybe have a cookout in the summer. But once you start talking about like, hey, what do we do? Let's have a blood drive or collect, soup cans or something. People aren't interested anymore. You know what? That's fine because it's right because that's just not what that group's going to do. It's not what those people are going to do. But there are these other organizations that are doing it, and they're doing it seriously and professionally in a really sophisticated way that's built to last and to be there when you need them. And recovering from religion definitely does that. And we've seen it with some of the other groups, like in terms of litigation, American Atheists is, I think, supreme. Like that's what they do, right? You don't need to recreate that one from scratch, and nobody should have to do that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like American Humanist Association and Americans United is also involved in litigation and so on. I think, yeah, I mean, I think like the amount of people involved in, like, there's a lot of national organizations who are, involved with these legal challenges.
Yeah, and I mean, it's stuff that we don't want to do. And I mean, these are people who take cases to the Supreme Court. Like we had Monica Miller on. I think she's litigating something now as well. Right. And I mean, these are serious institutions that make a difference. They have positive outcomes that they can point to. And that's great. Like we've got these lasting institutions. Oh, that reminds me, there's one lasting institution we ran into and we ended up joining, Nathan. That was kind
Yes.
of a big deal.
Yeah. This is the big highlight of the year for us, I guess. We joined
Right.
Atheists United Studios
Yeah.
in
Holla.
September, I think. And yeah, we're really happy to be a part of them and partnering with other podcasts, other secular podcasts. And we wanted to do a shout out to one of the new shows on the channel called Amusing Jews. And it's sort of about, well, I guess the content or the subject is in the name. It's about amusing Jews. So, like the first episode I listened to, well, they talked with one fellow who was on Seinfeld, and so it's sort of cool learning about some of the Seinfeld lore. So we're just going to play a short promo of the show, and hopefully you guys can check them out.
Amusing Jews is an interview show celebrating Jewish contributors and contributions to American popular culture. It's hosted by me, Jonathan Friedman.
And me, Joey Angelfield. No religion, no politics, just informative and entertaining conversations with people behind the things we love.
Join us as we discover and rediscover the amusing Jews who have brightened our culture and our lives.
Yeah, so we'll include a link below to Amusing Jews. So check out their episodes.
Check out everything at the studio.
There's a couple other podcasts as well, and more joining. So yeah,
and it's great. It's great that it's growing. And also, like the other thing we know, we talked to AE Studios, we talked to Atheists United out of California because we love their work, right? Like, and they're one where they cover all these bases, and they've been through this, right? They've been through the whole people who just want to socialize and people who want to be political, want to be active in their community and build a community. And they're doing it. They've got I think they do, is it like food drives? and they've a youth group.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think they were doing like going to the desert and studying the stars. Like, I mean, it's just, yeah. So we're really happy to join them because it's their group that's getting it done. Growing membership, built to last, looking at both sides of the coin, right? Being social, being activist, and tearing down Christian signs off of
Yes.
motorways, because that's just a
Yeah.
bunch of garbage, isn't it?
Yeah, that's how they first came to our attention, which is kind of funny. Just this article about their street pirate program of taking down signs. I guess, Todd, you must have noticed the episode or the article first and said like we should probably talk. We should talk to these people.
Oh yeah,
And then it turned out to be very fruitful.
yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
it worked out a lot, and I'm glad that it's a growing thing, and it's a hotbed of podcasting now, which is fantastic. And also, if you look, they need money. They don't have God helping them out. They can't just pray for windfalls. Toss them a few ducats. There'll be a link below, I'm sure. Hell, this is probably where you found us. So
yeah. Give them a few
yeah, like
ducats.
we've got this was really good to find these institutions. Oh, and one of the things that struck me about it, again, like talking about lasting institutions, is that like when groups just kind of go out and burn out in 2 or 3 years, it's fine, right? You might learn a lesson about what not to do, but the ones that stick around, right now, there's an institutional memory, and there are people moving between groups. There are people communicating with this group. When you get success, it breeds more success, right? So it's like you get this seed that finds the light and gets enough water and starts fruiting, then it's going to spread. And this is, I hope this is what we see. I think this is what we're going to see from Atheists United.
Yeah, I think so. I think sort of going back to what you were saying earlier, I mean, I don't think it's like, if you try something and it doesn't work, it's not like a failure. I mean, it may have been, if it lasted a couple of years or a year or whatever, like it may be what you needed at the particular time and what other people needed. And there may not be the same need anymore. And that's like, I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I sort of think like as a contrast with religion or with Christianity or whatever, where it's like, I don't know that they would ever say, you just come to church for a little bit and then you can leave and that's fine. They would probably want to have people like, sort of be members forever.
Right.
Whereas I think in secular groups, there's probably a lot more people moving in and out as they kind of require whatever, social support or community. I mean, I know that, like the groups that I happen to have been a part of, that I joined, and then, well, mostly it was because I moved somewhere else, but, it's what you needed at the particular time. And maybe it's not like it would be a lifetime commitment or something. I think that's something like that maybe makes the atheist space kind of different, that there is that possibility of moving in and out as you need.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like after really, I mean, the secular paradox for me was a very, very helpful way to frame what we are and how to think about the ways that we're meant to interact. Because even like we're saying with humanism, like atheism is such a small, specific thing. And when you start interacting with people, with very online atheists, wink, wink, and you start hearing things like, I don't believe in anything, or we're just individuals who all just kind of ended up having exactly the same beliefs for no reason. It's just foolishness. But like, we don't need to all get together all the time. We don't need to create an echo chamber where we just constantly repeat the same stuff. Like, it's okay to go out and be an individual. And if this group is not for you, if you think like, what, the thing I like is the politics, I'm going to go join a political party, that's what you should do. That's where you ought to be. You should not be constrained by some constructed group that's there to dominate and control you the way a church does. We have freedom of movement. We have freedom of assembly. You ought to be able to do that. So that we have this half of the secular paradox that says, like, you know what? There are people who want to go out and do their thing their way and not face this kind of group think, not face any sort of conformity, not sacrifice any part of their individual to be part of a group. That's a strength, that there's never a force that says you have to do this. That's a good thing, right? But if you think there's a part of that, part of this atheist experience in your life, part of it that says, the thing that matters most to me is this, there's a group for that. And if there isn't, you can make it and you'll meet other atheists. And that's great. If you want to go out and hang out, drink beer, and watch sports and not pray, well, there's people for that. You want to go out and, give hot cocoa to Christmas shoppers and remind them that, this is a pagan festival. You got it all wrong. But, good luck with keeping the Christ in Christmas. Yeah, maybe there's some of that for you out there. All right, go, I don't know, form a band. Anyway, I'm just saying that we've got, like, this secular paradox really opened my eyes, and I see it as a strength of atheism. I guess it's this little, like, it's that anarchist demon in my head.
Yeah.
You don't need that. We don't need anything.
Yeah.
Burn it down.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be a weakness. It could be, harnessed as a strength, potentially.
Yeah. It totally is. It's great because it's, it's as long as people are able to get the things that they need. And we've got it. Yeah. The more people we talk to, like these great groups, man, the ones that are out there doing it.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to talk about was, well, outside the US, in Canada and the UK, there were just new census results that came out this year got
fantastic.
So we got a better picture of how religion's continuing to decline. So in Canada, we found out that 35% of the country now identifies as non-religious, and just over 50% identify as Christian now. So it's just almost, Christians are almost not in the majority anymore. In the UK, it's a little bit higher. 37% identify as non-religious, and less than 50% identify as Christian. So in that case, Christians have fallen out of the majority.
Yeah. It's no longer a Christian nation.
Yeah. And I think, even those ones who are checking Christian, I mean, those are, some percentage of those are nominal Christians who are probably going to be in the none category at some point. I guess like maybe one of the things to think about moving forward is like, and we sort of talked about this with Christian Lumsdahl a couple weeks or months ago, like, this sort of thing, like how to get this, this voting, or not voting, but like this demographic, 30 over a third is non-religious, like how to get them into sort of the more organized space. And I think, he was talking about this with the Norwegian humanists, where 2%, something like 2% of the population is members of humanists, but like, 10% or something are sympathetic. And then there's, however, over a third is, or maybe higher, is non-religious. So there's something like maybe in terms of creating communities and creating maybe even like political pressure groups, that the bringing people into institutions maybe is a thing to think about, and how to do that, or if to do that, maybe.
Yeah, and how to do that's been big, because one of the things that we haven't talked about is what causes secularization, which is weird because we've talked about it on the show so many times, and there's we don't have a definitive answer yet, do we? This hasn't been answered. Do we know? Nathan, what causes secularization?
I think, I mean,
right? There we go.
I guess. There's not, I don't think, like, I think there's this classical theory, which I don't think really holds up anymore, as something like, as like the world modernizes or something, like religion falls away. I mean, maybe there's some truth to that, but it doesn't happen immediately anyway, because only in the recent decades has we really started to see serious declines.
Yeah,
So,
and it's incredibly uneven. We've talked about it. We're going to keep talking about this one because it's endlessly fascinating. We know people who are doing great research on it, but yeah, we don't fully understand secularization yet, which is weird. But we're seeing like these big impacts that are just continuing and accelerating. And like, I mean, so that change in England was that England or the UK? Do you know offhand?
that was England and Wales, actually, I should
England
say.
and
But I
Wales.
think it's the same trends are happening in the other parts of the UK,
Right.
and Europe, obviously, too.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and really all over the world. I think, I think one explanation. There's probably multiple things contributing to secularization, but I think one is the influence of the internet. I think is important in multiple ways. I think, like, in terms of giving people access to information that they might not have had before, pointing out, inconsistencies in the Bible, or whatever, stuff like this. And also in giving people the possibility of finding community and to help them navigate their way out of religion, I think is important too.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
I think that's one part of the story. And I think it makes sense that, in the past 2 decades, we've really seen the decline is getting sharper, it seems.
Yeah. And
So it's, yeah.
we've also, I'm trying to think if we talked to people on the show about this, but Ryan Burge writes, I'm pretty sure he's made this point, that like politics is pushing people out of churches now.
Right. Yeah,
So
that's
this
another
move
thing.
to
Yeah.
the right is alienating sort of the liberal core. And that's one, it helps cover a lot of things, because it's like, well, that's why they vote Democrat, right? That's why atheists vote Democrat. And it's why people are leaving. And we've heard that from people too, people who've recently left faiths, people who've either listened to the show or people we've met, and like, yeah, that Trump basically drove them out of the Trumpiness of a church has driven them out of their religion, which means it can go the other way, but we haven't seen that yet. Yeah, so we know that there is definitely anecdotally and at personal levels, politics has been playing a role in religion, and it seems to bear out with research as well. But it's another piece of it that we still don't know that one yet.
Yeah, I think because there's so many contributing factors, it's hard to say, like, this is the particular one. I think it's all linked. I sort of think, I agree about the, like, sort of politicized churches pushing people out. But I think at some point it's also that the beliefs, people no longer believe in the beliefs that the churches put out. Like, it's one thing, for a church to be, not sort of accepting of gay people or whatever. But then, like, some people would leave the church, but then there's probably others who are like, they're pushed out for that, but then they also question the beliefs as well, like in terms of like believing in Jesus or God or something. Yeah, there's a lot of different factors going on, I think.
Which, yeah, Nathan, we're supposed to reflect on what we learned this year, and that's something we didn't learn. Now I'm bummed out. That's just, it's going the wrong way here. So many areas left untouched. Hey, here's a weird question. Nathan, has this year changed your idea of whether or not a true atheist can believe in God?
I know that we've had a couple people, I think, who said
I'm not talking about other people, Nathan. God.
I would
Everyone
just
else,
say that
we know how to play this game now. It's not about other people.
yeah,
Nathan, what about you?
I would still say no, a true atheist can't believe in God. Even though some people have said otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, here's where I think we've had one person say yes on it, and I think, like, yeah, actually, I think a true atheist can believe in God, because there are people right now who say they believe in God and are atheists, and they do not, and that the 3 Bs, this idea of belief, belonging, and behavior, and how they kind of fall away in a particular order. There are people who they're not a member of a church. They don't go to church. They don't act like church people. They don't follow the prescriptions of their religion. And if you ask them, they'll be like, yes, I do believe in God. But they don't. They're atheists.
Yeah.
And that's
a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that is more true than we think. I think there are plenty of people who are atheistic in the sense that they don't abide by religious practices. They don't believe anything they're told about it. They don't act as if it's true or important. But they're like, yeah, of course, God. Yeah, of course. Of course I believe in God. Who doesn't believe in God?
Yeah, that's a good point. And like maybe in a few years they'll say they are atheists or something, but or whatever. Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Right. And or they'll go through those steps, right? Where they're like spiritual but not religious, and then they
Yes.
And then they'll be like, "Oh, I don't really believe."
Yeah.
And then they'll, but they may never get to that point, but they are that thing. They behave in exactly the same way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
So yeah, that's definitely changed in the past year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's keep going. Nathan, I'm going to keep throwing it at you. Can a true atheist reject humanism?
I would say yes.
Really?
Although I personally wouldn't, but I think you could. Yeah, I would say yes.
Well, tell me more. What are some parts of it?
Again, this is not me, but some hypothetical person that
who would do it.
They could. I'm thinking like someone like Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher, probably wouldn't be a humanist.
I think he's an anti-humanist.
Yeah, I don't like, and I don't know what sort of how you would define him as not, or like what aspect of him wouldn't be humanist. I mean, I guess it's like rejection of sort of like liberal tenets of like equality and sort of rights. I think he would oppose which is sort of humanist parts of humanism.
But he also has stuff about like suffering, right? Where I think humanism generally aims to like alleviate suffering. I think Nietzsche and a humanist would differ on the meaning, or like what, like I think we often hear humanists say things like unnecessary, like causing unnecessary suffering, whereas I think Nietzsche would say like you need to seek out suffering for yourself to make something great.
Yeah. So I think yeah. What do you think about that question?
Yeah, I mean that was kind of my line of thought too. And also one of the things that's in the back of my head is that it's weird that we don't really talk about sort of like second generation atheists. It's tough to find them. Most of the people we talk to have a religious background. We know that leaves you with baggage. We don't really know what the next generation is going to be like, because we're not like, if you have 20% of the population is religious now, what does that look like in 20 years? If they don't have an upbringing where they're like, I left a church because they told me my gay friend was going to hell, so I turned my back on it. What does that mean to the next generation that doesn't have that experience? They don't have they're not raised with the concept of hell. They're not raised with, a sky tyrant making up rules. We don't know where it's going to go. So yeah, I think they can, I think it's possible there'd be a rejection of humanism. I don't know. Yeah. All right, Nathan.
Can I just to pick up on that last point?
Sure.
I think like it's such an interesting question about it's something that needs more research needs to be done for people like how now that there are going to be more of these people who are raised atheist or raised without religion. Like looking at the differences between people who I think like people who are this historian named Colin Brown, he's come up with this labels like always atheist or not once not atheist. So these two groups, And it's like, yeah, we're going to be seeing more of these always atheist people, and like, how are they going to differ from the once not atheists?
And what are they? What are the difference between the always atheists and once not atheists?
I don't know what the differences are, but I mean, like, I guess we just don't know yet.
Religious and became
Yeah,
atheist.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think the experiences are quite different between the two. Even though they come to the same place in the end. It'll be interesting because eventually always atheists will probably outnumber the once not atheists. But I think right now most people are once not atheist, who've been raised religious. It's something like, I think it's going to be more in a more important question moving forward. I think how these two groups interact with each other. Yeah.
Totally,
anyway. Yeah.
I would also like to reflect on my earlier statement saying that, in the intro, saying that the more we've learned, the more we recognize what we can't see, because we've spent the past 45 minutes pretending to talk about what we learned and really talking about what we have no clue about.
That's true.
Like, we're just laying out a research agenda for next year.
Yeah,
that's how we should have framed this. Really.
Well, yeah. Well,
we're
I guess
future oriented. We're always planning ahead.
I mean, just like answering questions leads to new questions, I guess.
That's the best. That's the best when that happens.
Yeah.
And because if you start asking questions and someone says God, well, that conversation sucks. But if you ask someone, hey, Nathan, can a true atheist believe in magic? Now that's an interesting conversation. Nathan, can a true atheist believe in magic?
I would say yes, I guess, based on our conversation with Timothy Stacy a few months or weeks ago. I'm always just kicking the can or whatever, kicking the ball over to someone else. I think it was
this mixed metaphor through an open door that opens to a window.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think, depending how you define magic, I think, experiencing, I think the example he uses, like, if you're in a crowd at a protest, like chanting a slogan or something, you might feel this powerful sense of like something you feel larger than yourself or something like that. And I think like it's not magic in kind of a supernatural sense, but so I think I would say yes or maybe to that question. Yeah.
What do you? Some form of wordplay.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas I think those words already exist. It's awe. It's wonder.
Okay, that's true.
Right. Yeah. You can't believe in magic. That's so silly. I watched. I watched a documentary the other night about Miss Cleo, who was this phone psychic for a 1-900 number in the 90s. And what really struck me about it was like, it turned out to be a scam. Wow, really shocking. But it's like, it's a 1-900 number. We knew all the 1-900 numbers were scams. And so like, what was their thing that made them not, what was their cover story for how they were going to scam people? Tarot, which is a scam, right? Like you're putting a scam on top of a scam. No, like you can't believe in that. Yeah, it's just not, it doesn't work out that way. And even when you do get people, if there are people you press on it, look, I understand, like if you think astrology is fun and it's cute and it's a great way to talk shit about your friends, it's great. Oh, fucking Geminis. You know what I mean? Like that. That's great. But like when people have been pressed, I don't know if you've ever pressed people on things like astrology, but it'll be like, well, you see what's happening is that if you're born in the summer, you get more sunlight.
Right.
When you're in the womb. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's different from being born in December when you get less light.
Yes.
Like lower ambient temperature. It's like, well, you know what? That's kind of thoughtful, but also that's bullshit, because then it's like you're just talking about summer babies and winter babies, and why do the positions of the stars matter?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And then the horoscopes in the newspaper, like, is that based on how much sunlight you got when you're.
No, it's garbage. It's
yeah.
garbage. It's garbage. Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't believe
I
it.
would. Yeah, I mean, I would be willing to entertain the idea that people born in the summer maybe are different than people born in the winter. But even then, maybe on a sort of statistical level, you might detect some differences. But I would doubt it, though. Yeah.
It would be fascinating. That would be interesting. It'd be interesting to find out like what the
wouldn't
cause
be
is,
astrology, though.
It's not magic.
Yeah. Right.
So
yes.
no, you can't believe in magic.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I know. Yes, I understand. If we want to play metaphorical word games, we can turn magic into anything we want. Love is magic, Nathan. Don't you believe in love?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
But we're talking about magic, and no. Now and finally, Nathan, can a true atheist have a Christmas tree?
Yes.
Really?
I would say.
Tell me more.
Ambiguously, yes. Well, I don't have one here. But
then you're not a true atheist, Nathan. If you don't have a Christmas tree, you're not a true atheist.
Yeah, I think we should continue to sort of secularize this holiday more and more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What about you? Do you have a Christmas tree?
No, I have a pagan tree, and but because I agree with you. Like we know it's a secular holiday. Let's not play make pretend. I've got neighbors who keep the Christ and Christmas signs, and it feels so silly to me. It's like, yeah, look at you with your pagan tree and your lights and your gift giving. How is this part of what you believe? Yeah, taking your kids to see Santa at the mall. That's not that. This is a secular holiday. It was a Roman holiday. It got co-opted by Christianity, and it's been co-opted now, and it's going to be co-opted by secular forces more than it already has been, and it's fantastic, and I love it. I also thought recently, like, if you were a Martian and you needed to, like, Martians had taken over Earth, and were complaining about and they had to settle a dispute between citizens of a town about whether or not you could put up Christmas trees or a menorah or something on a town square. They would just be like, what's the big deal? It's just the winter holiday. You're humans. You have a winter holiday, you have a spring holiday, you have a summer holiday, you have a fall holiday. This is your winter holiday. What does it matter? And really, that's all it fucking is. We have we have the solstice. It's a natural thing in the world. It's the material world. We've built ritual around it, which I probably should have mentioned more in the question about magic. It's great to have rituals. It's great to have secular rituals. It's great to have something comfortable in your home when the weather is miserable. I appreciate all this stuff, but let's secularize these. Let's make sure everybody knows Christmas is about commerce. Let's keep the commerce in Christmas. I hate that part, but you know what? If it means defeating religion, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think things like Hanukkah too, I think are also probably quite secular these days. I mean, or I'm sure secular Jews can light a menorah and stuff like that. I think we should rather than abandoning these traditions, we should just secularize them more because I think they're still valuable. So
yeah. I mean, it's the use of ritual is, I think, super important, and it's something that we've also seen in a lot of how atheist groups work and how we build cohesion and what people have been doing, whether it's from the way the Soviets changed marriage in the Soviet Union, it had a lasting effect on Russian society, to how we've changed the morality around marriage in the US, right? Like, it's not just about procreation. It's not about man and woman making babies. We've changed it. It's been through secular forces, and we need to keep doing that and maintain these rituals, even with their silly names.
Yeah, I think that's something else we've learned just about the importance of ritual. I think it's been made more clear for me anyway. All right,
Nathan, that was fantastic.
We move on to the bonus. Yeah,
it's great when we get together like this.
Yeah,
and just ramble for people. I think they appreciate it too. Let us know what you think. Remember, if you want to reach us, we are at Nath G. Alexander at the Twitters. Is Twitter still around? Did that break yet? Did it fall apart?
It's there for now. I try and not go on it much these days, but
yeah. It might not exist much longer.
Yeah. And we want to say thanks to our Patreons.
Thank you so much.
And all of our audience for listening.
Especially the new patrons. It's great to have more people come on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. And I guess we want to encourage people to check out Atheists United Studios, check out some of the other podcasts on the network.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And if throw them a few bones. If you've got extra money lying around after the holidays, it's not bloody likely. But if you don't have any money and you still want to support us, like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. It's free, it's easy, and we come to you if you do that. It makes it a lot easier for everybody. Big thanks to Red Japan for the music. Can't believe they're still at it after all these years.
Yeah.
3 years later, still doing it. And otherwise, hey, until will we see everybody in the new year? Is that right?
Yeah.
Until next time.
Yep.
Right. Bye-bye. Nailed it. We're the best.